Beep, 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 beep.
Right, we are live again for another week of the Real Operators webinar. Will, I do not know what's going on, but you're not wearing pink on Valentine's Day, so that's a red flag right there.
I'm not really a pink kind of guy. I used to own a lot of pink shirts. I got my green jacket on though. You're wearing pink for us. Don't worry.
Real men wear pink, brother. Let's go.
I agree.
All right, guys. So for those of you tuning in on Valentine's Day, thank you for, number one, being consistent, as we are, because we practice what we preach. And yes, we are consistent no matter what. We're here Tuesday, Valentine's Day, getting after it and providing some value for you guys. So again, we do this for the people, right, Will?
For the kids.
For the kids. All we ask in return is you make sure you subscribe, make sure you like. Dude, share this with somebody, give value to somebody else. Just share, like, subscribe, comment, and let's help grow this thing little by little, right? One topic that's always hot is marketing and how we get our first deal, right? We always talk about consistency. And for some reason, this week, more than ever, I've heard the complaint. There's no deals out there. I've been looking, but I can't find a deal under 250. Everything that wholesalers send is not a good deal. The leads suck, etc., etc. This is like, it's such a mindset thing that people get themselves into, that there's no deals out there, that you're setting yourself up for failure, right? So, Will, I want to hear how long it took you to get your first deal, and what's your recommendation for the people that are listening that say there are absolutely no deals out there. I don't know how you guys are doing it because I can't.
Yeah, so the way I got my first deal was in 2017. It was a direct mail postcard, and I got my first deal, which ended up turning into a lawsuit for a year. But that's another story for another time. But yeah, all my first 5 deals came from direct mail. I want to say probably my first 10 deals came from direct mail, even though I did the business completely ass backwards.
All right, but how many pieces were you mailing to get those 10 deals?
Brother, at the time,
niche or
keep in mind. So at the time, this was 2017. Very different. Saturation wasn't as big as it is today. Competition was still fierce, but there wasn't 35,000 gurus pushing wholesaling and courses here and courses there and blah 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 and all that stuff. So it was competitive, but yeah, it was direct mail for me. I think at the time we were sending out like maybe 11 to 12,000 pieces a month, and there was 2 of us. When we weren't doing direct mail, we were cold calling. Texting was not a thing yet in 2017. There was no texting platform, and I sound old now, but in 2017, there was no Roar, Launch Control, Smarter Contact, the batch lead. There was none of that. So it was like, I remember when I discovered Mojo Dialer, that was like, I was like a big deal with the triple line dialer. It was like the first time that anyone ever had Xbox Live, if you remember that. It was like, oh my God.
Was it not out there, or did you just have like more limited resources because you weren't consistently, you weren't looking for them, or you didn't know where to look?
So look, it's a combination of everything. I know that there were auto dialers, and there was some beta of texting platforms. But the first time I ever heard of a texting platform or anything like that probably goes back to like late 2018, early 2019. And it was, I think it was called Milk was the first one. It was like MILKK or something like that, Milk It or something. And then I heard about Roar, and then Smarter Contact came out, which was actually a buddy of mine that we did an event together in 2019. Yeah, with Max Maxwell. And then it was just, it just blew up everywhere, kind of like RBMs, right? Like ChatGPT is blowing up right now, which is the AI software. That's a good representation. Now you're seeing 3, 4, 5 different versions of ChatGPT and different AI. This is always how it happens. Now everyone's running to the market to get market share. Everybody uses it. It's going to be amazing. Then it's going to have bugs. Then it's going to get banned for some things. Then it's going to come back. That's kind of how the process works. But a couple things that I'll say, you know, dating all the way back to 2017 for me, and then people even before that, direct mail, cold calling, and texting are three things that I've been doing for at least 4 years now, maybe 3.5, 4 years, all three of them. And they've consistently produced deals. They continue to generate deals. Follow up, you know, I mean, you can get really into it by setting up your follow up sequences and your systems and all that stuff. But they work on the acquisition side and they work on the disposition side too. So there's two sides to that coin. But what always works and what I always say is consistency. So any marketing channel with any list that's used consistently is going to generate you deals. The consistent part is where the difficult part is.
Correct. So, all right, back to consistency. You start mailing 10,000 pieces of mail. How many times did you hit these pieces until you got your first deal? How many and how much money were you in, more or less?
Oh man, that was tough. So I got my first deal. So my first deal actually closed in 91 days. I remember that because I'm born in 1991. So
91 days from the day you started marketing.
91 days from the day I started marketing. That was my first deal. That seller, I ended up suing a year later. It was a shit show. But the second, third, fourth deal all came from the same seller. I'll never forget his last name. It was Fluker. He was a guy.
Wait. The seller that you sued, you did multiple deals with him after?
No. The guy that I sued was one deal. And then the second, third, fourth came from the same seller. My fifth was another seller. But they were all direct mail. And then we started cold calling after that, in between to generate deals. So, and then we had a bunch of leads. So I think at the time we probably mailed out 35,000 to 40,000 postcards to get those 3-4 deals, give or take.
Mm-hmm.
And then we just kept mailing. I was probably in the whole 15 grand or so. It was really hard because keep in mind, most people don't know this, but I bankrolled my business off of 2 credit cards that I had at the time, because I believed in this and I believed in myself. I do not recommend that. It's not for the faint of heart. It sucked. Yeah.
He doesn't recommend not believing in yourself. He just doesn't recommend bankrolling your business off of credit cards, right?
Correct. I really recommend believing in yourself, but bankroll, it's not for everybody, man. It's really not for everybody. It's not easy. It was a lot of grit and self-belief and consistency, where at that point I looked and I remember I was like negative 20 grand in debt, plus student debt. I'd been fired from my job. So I was like, well, shit, I'm in it now. So you guys, like this wholesaling shit better work. That was kind of my mentality. And you know, we just grew out from there. And that's how we got started.
Yeah, well, good. We're here now, right? All right,
Exactly.
So there you go. That's a little nugget on consistency. That's what we wanted to talk about. Just being consistent. And again, showing up even on Valentine's Day when we knew the attendance was going to be down, etc. We're still here for you guys because that's what it's about.
Exactly.
All right, so let's get to like our first question. Solomon has a question. Okay, so you said it's 100 leads to a deal. If you have 40 leads and signed an old lead to a contract, do you start over or continue from that 40 leads because the signed contract is from an old lead? It's a KPI question. So if I'm understanding it correctly, the KPI, what you're going to look at is a blended average over a course of time, right? Mm-hmm. So I look at my KPIs on a weekly basis, and I look at my KPIs on a monthly basis. It depends on how many leads you're producing. If it's taking you 2 months to produce 100 leads, then in those 2 months, you should expect to close at least one deal. If for some reason you go 3 months without closing a deal, then you have a problem. That's how you look at the KPI. It's not like, oh, you closed the deal on 40, so the next 60 leads for sure you're not going to close anything, you know?
Correct.
Front loaded. But the only important thing here is to look for consistency and to stick to that pattern that works, right? Does that make sense? So
yeah,
did I explain that?
Yeah, no, that's perfect. So yeah, look, there's 2 types of KPIs. There's lagging KPIs and what I would call immediate KPIs. But all in all, I think KPIs is a great topic because people overcomplicate KPIs. people always take it, I've seen it happen again and again. I've done it myself in the past where people get too far into KPIs where it's ridiculous, and just keep it simple. If you know 1 in 100 ish are KPIs, and by the way, different KPIs for different marketing channels. For direct mail, that's going to be a different KPI. For cold calling, that's going to be a different KPI. For texting, that's going to be a different KPI. PPC, Facebook ads, bandit signs, et cetera, et cetera. Those are different KPIs. So, but let's just say 1 in 100, right? If that's your metric, then if you want to do 2-3 deals a month, then you got to average 200 to 300 leads, depending on how good you are at converting, depending on what lists you're hitting, what marketing channels you're hitting, etc. So that's really how you gauge it. So you should stay focused and consistent on that result, because if you know that you're generating 100, 200 leads a month, eventually what's going to happen is that you're going to catch what's called Mr. Mo, which is momentum, and then that's going to trigger. And month 3, 4. You've put up 300-400, leads, that you're going to start to convert. And that's how it goes. And then all of a sudden that's like the effect that people are like, oh man, I busted my ass for 6 months or a year, and boom, it felt like a light switch turned on, right? And then deals start coming in. Well, the reason is, number one, you're getting better. That's number one. You're getting more comfortable. You're getting better at repetitions. You're getting better at conversations. You can convert better. Number two,
KPIs improve.
Right. And then number two, you have more of them. So you have a bigger sample size to go through. So when I was mailing 10,000 postcards, 15,000 postcards, my sample size was about that big. When I started mailing 150,000 postcards, which, by the way, you have to scale to that. It took me years to scale to that. But when I started that level, man, and I knew my sample size, I was like, man, we're going to get 6 to 8 deals a month consistently off of this amount of KPIs, this amount of leads. So that's how you view KPIs. But the longer you do it, the better you become, and the more of them you have, and then you can really track out.
Yeah, and the whole thing is being able to project forward and to have a consistent business that's trackable. If you're not tracking these KPIs, by the time you find out, holy shit, my marketing's not working, your bank account's dry. You have to be able to nip it like, hey, okay, month 1, we created 100 leads. Why haven't I closed the deal? And question it right away. If you're not on those KPIs day to day, that's where you're allowing yourself to be more vulnerable, because you're not
always remember right away. Sorry, but always remember, what you measure improves. What you don't measure doesn't. It's just that simple.
Correct. But yeah, Solomon, what you're looking at is a blended average over a long period of time. And hey, maybe my metric on cold calling is 100 leads to 1. Maybe the metric that works for you is 40 to 1 or 50 to 1. It depends. But what you want to look at is something consistent that is profitable and works for your business. Another thing that a lot of people like to do is go by benchmark KPIs that some guru said on YouTube, and then that's what they live by. Okay, if that KPI is not working for you because you operate at a smaller scale where you can service these leads a little bit better or whatever, then that is what it is. A benchmark is always a good target to go for, but it's not necessarily the end all be all. You know what I mean?
So, yeah. And another thing I always see people, especially newer people, they come to me and they're like, hey, I'm super frustrated. I'm pissed. I'm going to quit, or I'm going to give up, or whatever, because, it's just not working for me. My first question is, well, what are you currently doing? What have you been doing, and how much of it, and how long have you been doing it? Well, I've been calling, every day for 3 weeks, and I haven't gotten a deal yet. I'm like, well, that's your problem right there. You haven't been in it long enough. You think Usain Bolt just woke up one day and just ran 100 meters in record time? No, he ran tens of thousands of meters before he hit the record at 100 meters. So the moral of the story is you have to give yourself enough time and put in, guys, girls, a massive, massive amount of effort on the front end. Here's the funny thing about being an entrepreneur. You are putting up a massive amount of effort, a massive amount of time, equity, sweat, everything. And it looks like it's not moving at all. But in reality, it is moving. You're just literally trying to pick something off the ground. If you've ever seen a rocket launch at SpaceX, the shit burns and burns and burns and burns, and the rocket fuel is down there, and the rockets are going and going and going, and this thing is just shaking and it's not moving for like 20 seconds, and then all of a sudden you see it go da 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 da, and then it goes, and when it takes off, it's off, and then it speeds up.
And that's when you operate in momentum. That's when you enter momentum. And
Correct.
how you cold calling, but I can barely do one deal. Well, dude, I have my KPIs down packed, and you get to scale it, and then you get into momentum, and then the deals become consistent, you know. And the only way to create consistency is by scaling up. And then tracking KPIs, by the way, is not 100 leads is one deal. That's not the only KPI. It's 1,000 calls equals, or well, really it'd be like 10,000 calls equals 100 leads. 100 leads equals one deal. One deal equals $15,000, right? And then before that, for me to make 10,000 calls, I need to have 30,000 records, fresh records. So think about that, you know?
Yeah. So his next question is, how do you comp a property that a seller wants close to market price for a 2-2, but the caveat is that he has a 1-bed with a kitchen and bathroom he's building, but does not have a permit for the first bedroom? Solomon, I'm trying to make sure we understand this correctly. So in reality, it's a 2-2, but in reality, it's a 3-3 is what it's going to be.
Yeah, that's what it seems like. He's asking if we could comp it. Thinking novation, dude. What you have to look at. So this is one thing about comps, right? Sometimes you're not going to have a straight comp to look at, and the straight comp is not your only way, right? For example, I have a deal right now in Miami that I'm getting blown up for. I'm asking $245 for it. It's a 1,000 square foot 3-1 in West Little River. Okay.
I know this deal.
I found a buyer that bought a 3-1 in West Little River last year for $240, made it a 3-2, and sold it for $445.
Yep.
Now, if I tell you the ARV of a 3-1 is $300,000, and I'm selling it to you at $240, and the property needs like $60K worth of work, does that sound like a deal? No. But I know that this buyer is willing to do additions to the property, make it a 3-2, and hey, he paid $240 for the last one he bought. That was a 3-1, and he made a 3-2.
Right.
Why wouldn't he do the same with mine? But guess what? I called him. He's interested. $240.
Correct.
So it's like the investor, dude. It's not always good for a straight comp. Sorry.
Right. So don't miss opportunities. What Henry's saying, and I've done it a lot in my career. Don't miss opportunities that it's a 3-1 face value, but you know it doesn't have reoccupancy. You can make it a 3-2, and as a 3-2, it has $100K worth of more value. I would definitely pick up that deal because I know there's a little nugget for you. If you have a property that's a 2-1, that's 1,000 square feet, to me, that's a 3-1 all day, twice on Sunday, because I can throw up a partition, I can cut out some square footage somewhere, and I got a 3-1. Change the comp. If I have a 3-1 with 1,100, 1,200 square feet, that's a 3-2 to me, barring any crazy stuff with the layout. So again, I'm looking at that as a 3-2, but face value, it wouldn't make sense. But you have to look at it as a value add.
Correct. And that's how, as a wholesaler, you capitalize by finding other people that are willing to do this, not only using the straight comp, you know. And that's another thing on the flipping side. Like I flip a lot, and hey, sometimes I don't want to get into that. And I'll get my ass beat on an offer by somebody else that's getting creative. Step yourself short if you're selling it to me based off of the straight comp when you have this other guy that's willing to do the value add. Does that make sense, Solomon? So look at the square footage, look at what all the potential is in the area, run comps within a mile, and see what every investor is doing, and reach out to those investors, get feedback from them. You know, try to build a little bit of rapport. You could work these deals a little bit better than somebody that maybe has 8 deals in the pipeline, and their dispo guy is just like hammering calls because he's trying to get offers in, you know? So that's what I would do.
And then cross-reference public record. So if you go look at actives right now or closed sales, and you see that there's a 3-2 in the description, fully renovated, selling for 450, and you go look at the public records, and public records say that it's a 3-1, well, somebody did a conversion there. That's exactly what you want to look for. Look at what they acquired it for. Look at what you got. And if you're below the cash value of what they paid for it, then you're good.
Yeah, that's it. That's another one. Look for cash comps. Anything that's sold cash in the area, hey, the ARV is 400. I don't care. Somebody bought this cash for 330. Okay, cool. Call that guy and offer it to him.
Correct.
Skip trace the buyer. Call the realtor.
Your best buyers are always, so one process that we have is whenever we get a property under contract, the subject property, my VAs go in and drop a pin, and they'll go in a 3-mile radius, up to 5 miles sometimes, and they'll look at all the cash transactions there, and they'll go one by one and present it to that property, to that investor. And the reason is because they're the best ones, because they're already buying in the area that you have a property in.
Correct. And use your realtors, man.
Correct.
Solomon, I hope that helped. Check the square footage, check everything in the area. And hey, if somebody else in the area, check the rental listings. Maybe you find somebody in the area that's renting an efficiency. If that person is renting an efficiency, then odds are there's probably an efficiency somewhere in the area. That person is an investor. You call them and you say, hey, man, I have a house here that has a great efficiency with the kitchen, a 1-1. That investor is going to see the value that a flipper might not. So think of that. Go to gosection8.com and look for landlords that have Section 8 listings nearby and start calling those landlords and get opinions from them, man. Sometimes reverse wholesaling works when you have a property that's a little bit, that you don't really know the values very well.
Correct. There's a lot of things that you should be doing, for sure.
Yeah.
Next question.
Any more questions? We're dry on questions today. Well, I don't know what's going on. I feel like people.
Last time we had like 20. Today, no, everybody's Valentine's Day.
Yeah. Now, can you hear me?
I can hear you. I can't see you.
Gotcha. I'm having some technical difficulties, but we're fixing the camera right now.
All right. So listen, going back to like what you said, which was people talking about there's no deals going on. So I want to address this subject because it's honestly annoying me because I hear it all the time. I'll give you an example. I just picked up a property yesterday that was on the MLS. Okay. It was sitting there. It was listed at 2.65 million. I picked it up for $2,035,000. I could easily dump this property and wholesale it for 2.3 million. So it was there. It was sitting. They had been sitting on the market for 7.5 months. I shot my shot at 1.8. I ended up getting accepted at $2,035,000. So the moral of the story is, I'm not trying to impress anyone on this call. What I'm saying though is that I was looking for opportunity. I wasn't looking for the lack of opportunity. That is a mindset shift. That's the thing. So whatever it is that you're looking for, that's what you're going to find. Positive, negative, doesn't matter.
One of my favorite quotes: what you focus on expands.
Yep.
People focus on complaining and saying that there's no deals. And guess what? You're going to get a lot more of no deals if you keep complaining about that.
You ever notice how people that complain all the time, they're the ones with the shittiest lives? It's kind of, and listen, stuff happens all the time, man. I've been there. I've been there where I've woken up and I'm like, fuck wholesaling, fuck real estate, this is shit, this doesn't work, and and it only works for the gurus up there, and blah, 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 blah. You know what, dude? Listen, go have a pity party by yourself about that. Once you're done with that pity party, clock the fuck back in and get That's all I'm saying. Because nobody wants to hear it. You're not going to get anywhere with that kind of attitude. I promise you that. Whether it's wholesaling, life, relationship, friendship, whatever it is, even yourself. So stop with that. There's a bunch of opportunities out there. I got tons of deals that we're doing. So does Henry. And again, it's because we're focusing on the right things. We're not focusing on the lack thereof. On the contrary, I think the economy is kind of moving back up. Rates are now at 5.9. We were at 7% when we started these freaking webinars. So that's a positive movement for me.
Absolutely.
So I'm telling you, my properties are showing a lot more. I'm getting a lot more offers. I'm getting a lot more access. I'm getting a lot more interest. I'm getting a lot more feedback. And I'm watching and I'm talking to the guys like Jim Van Dyke and this and that are moving properties at volume. And they're like, yeah, man, it's definitely upticked. I'm like, all right, so here we go again. I don't know how long it'll last. I don't know what's going to happen, but here we go again. We are in a positive swing now. And the Fed has literally said, hey, we're slowing down, meaning that they feel that they have put enough brakes on the economy and that inflation is semi under control. That's a positive. So start hammering your list. Go back to your CRM. Go back to your follow-ups. There's tons of deals in your CRM, especially the more leads you have. I promise you. So next question. Hey guys, what are your best tactics? What are your best tactics to close a pre-foreclosure seller property? I am looking for tax deeds that are in foreclosure. All right, Evo.
It's about to be auctioned. Evo added that it's about to be auctioned.
Couple things. So if I'm looking to convince and close on a property that is set to be auctioned by the end of the month, according to public records, he owes $60K. Evo, number one, where's this property at? Because I'm interested. I'm sure Henry is.
I'll buy it.
Yeah. Number two, I love this list. It's one of my favorite lists. I've made some of my biggest margins on these lists. I've been hitting this list for 5.5 years straight. So there's two types of auctions here. There's a couple things we're going to talk about. Two types of auctions. There's tax deeds, okay, foreclosures, and then there's bank lender foreclosures. Two different types. Both foreclosures, both very different. Tax deeds are property taxes owed after 3 years. Usually, they're set to go to auction. Foreclosures or pre-foreclosures, because really a foreclosure is the end of the process, which is that the lender took it back and it is now on the MLS as an REO. So a pre-foreclosure is that a lender has defaulted a buyer. They're moving to auction that property. So both are very different. If you can find, fun fact, if you can find a tax delinquent property that has a mortgage, run as fast as you can to get that deed signed. We can talk more about that at a different time. Run. And I mean run.
That's one for a long time. But Evo, to try to convince a man, look, first thing, you want to understand where the seller's coming from. And you're going to be, this is a compassionate sale, man. This is going to be a very, what do you call it? A very emotional sale for the seller. The seller has been dragging their feet to the point where it is in foreclosure or pre-foreclosure, and they still haven't done anything to it. The number one mistake that people in foreclosure do is they try to act when it's too late. This one is like close to it. So create urgency. Remember, this is an emotional sale, because if the guy were logical, he would have sold it a long time ago or done something with it.
Correct.
And
Here's a couple things. So, Evo, whenever I'm dealing with a seller like this, my first question, so you know that he owes right around $60K. This is my first question to the seller. And when I'm on the phone or I'm meeting in person, I say, listen, let's address the elephant in the room. First of all, do you understand what's going to happen through this auction process? Usually they're like, no. Okay. Well, here's what's going to happen. You paint them a roadmap. What's going to happen is, unfortunately, this is going to get sold at auction. About a month later, maybe less, there's going to be a writ of possession after the person gets a certificate of sale, and the sheriff is going to come and forcefully remove you from your property. And that's a very, very displeasing experience. And you're not going to get any money from this. I am here today. Let's talk about how I can help you and what are you actually looking for. How much cash do I have to give you today to sign the deed over so that I can fight the foreclosure, etc. Now, there's a ton of different ways to structure these kinds of deals. It is an emotional sale, so please be mindful of that. Don't go around stealing people's properties. Don't be a shitbag, all right? Be compassionate about it. Have some empathy. But you have an opportunity to create a win-win for everybody. There's a ton of ways to do it. If they owe $60K and it's going to foreclosure, that seems like a very, very small mortgage. You probably can't stop the sale right now. We'll see. It depends. I'd have to know more details. If you want to share it with Henry and I on the side, that's fine. But this is a great list to hit. They're starting to come back pretty heavy. And these are very urgent sellers. You very urgent. You can't get a contract and try to put it out and do this thing.
Right.
No. You have to close as fast as possible and or JV with somebody who knows how to do that. Typically, what I do is I buy the deeds. I buy them out for cash. I buy the deed and I stop the sale.
Yeah,
and then court, yeah.
Another thing about it being like an emotional sale, that these sellers, in my experience, they're tricky because their backs against the wall, and most of the time when I speak to them, it feels like they have a clouded mind and they can't make rational decisions. So when I mean emotional sale is get down to their level and understand the seller. It's not about the money. It's not about rationale, because if it were, he would have done something proactive about it a long time ago.
Correct.
So deeper, find what the real pain point is, find how you're really going to help the seller. And dude, don't shoot yourself in the foot by offering way more than you can and thinking that just by throwing money at it, you're going to solve the problem.
Yeah, and just remember too, you are solving a big issue. So don't let a seller try to negotiate you to paying what you would normally pay on final judgment 11K. Is that right?
Yeah, and
that's value 400K. So they're only delinquent on taxes. That strikes me that somebody might have died.
Yeah, could be.
That's
are you in contact with the property owner?
Yeah, who are you speaking to?
Dude, put them on this webinar right now. We'll close them live. Send them the YouTube link.
No, seriously, Evo, if you are interested, I mean, Henry and I will JV with you, and we'll look at it, and I'm, at the bare minimum, just tell you, hey, bro, this is how you need to do this deal.
Yeah,
I wouldn't burn time though. It's a huge opportunity.
Yeah, hit us up on Instagram. Send us a DM. Having said that, guys, this is the value that we're trying to provide. We want you to bring us real deals. We want to walk you guys through the process that we've already done. We've done this a bunch of times, and we're here to help you. We've been in the situation where the seller is like, dude, why are they not taking it? They're just going to let the house go into foreclosure. Yeah, that's how I understand that. You got to be more emotional with this person and talk to the lady about her cat and talk to the lady about her kid who now lives in North Carolina. She lives alone in Miami and blah, 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 blah. And you're going to help her by paying to move all her shit to North Carolina. You're going to put her on a flight. You're going to talk to her daughter, etc. But
listen, I bought people track phones. I bought people cell phones because they didn't have a means of communicate. I've gone to the house and given them a prepaid phone just to communicate with me. I've turned water back on for people. I've turned power back on for people. Seriously. Because these people are really like, there's motivated, and then there's a certain point where a seller just goes and just mentally checks out. And they're like, I don't give a shit what happens anymore. That's where you have to explain, okay, how can I help you? What is it that you really want? Most of the times, man, believe it or not, it's really not that big of a deal. They're like, you know what? If I could have 30 grand, I'd be happy.
They're like, just so clouded that they can't make rational decisions, bro.
Yeah, you have to uncloud them and just speak to them about the next steps. And then you have to provide solutions to that and be fast.
We're not going to get there by being Mr. Facts and drilling them with like, oh, if you don't sell me your house, you're going to lose it. And
right.
You're not going
to. They already know that. They already know that. They already know that. They've already, listen, the system has beaten the shit out of them all the way up to that point. Clearly, they haven't made the decision because they're just not there. That's where you have to get them.
Correct.
And if it's an inheritance, it's a little trickier. But that's another story for another time.
Yeah, but again, do whatever you got to do. I'm actually going to go knock on somebody's door today on Valentine's Day. Guy lives like, I don't know, not too far from me. So I'm gonna knock on his door and see if he answers. It's a great deal. But okay, guys, that's it for our Valentine's Day special. And first of all, I want to thank everybody that joined. Thank you guys very much. I'm glad to have attendance even on Valentine's. Thank you for being consistent. If you have this Evo, Solomon, that you guys are always on, you will be successful. All right. Before I leave, like and share. This is a new channel. We're growing in subscribers, but please drop this link. Take a picture of this. Put it on Instagram. Tell people to join us for next Tuesday's webinar. Let's grow the community so we can keep providing value. And if you want, we have a mentorship program that is a lot more in depth. Feel free, hit us up on Instagram, and we could chat. We could set up a 15-minute discovery call where we'll go over your goals and how we can help you achieve them. That's it for me.
That's it. Just keep on keeping on, man. I hope everybody has a nice Valentine's Day. I know I am. I know Henry's gonna have one with his newborn baby, so
All
that's
the
nice.
diapers and crying and milk and shit.
Cleaning up diapers. So
Yep.
look at my smile versus that smile. No kids, 2 kids. But anyway, yeah, man, hit us up. We're here to help. We're here to provide value. That's what we like to do. We love this. We live this every day. I don't consider this a job. I don't think I've ever worked a day in my life in the last 6+ years. So that must be doing something right. But either way, everybody enjoy your night, and we'll see you next Tuesday.
Thank you, guys.
Take care, guys.